once those subpoenas start flying. Joining me now is, as I mentioned, Hoboken City Councilman David Mello and former New Jersey State Senator Barbara Buono, who ran against Christie for governor on the Democratic ticket last year. And David, I will begin with you. I understand that you have been in contact with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I have been in contact through the Corporation Council of the City of Hoboken with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I will be meeting with them next week. And you have been instructed to not get into the details of what the conversation you had with Mayor Zimmer. Yeah, I've been instructed that it's best at this time to no longer rehash the details that I've already released to some members of the press. But you are on record having broadly corroborated at least her telling of a contemporaneous account of the meeting with Lieutenant Governor Guadagno. I stand by what I've said to the press thus far. I just don't want to rehash it at this point, and I want to take the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to speak to the U.S. Attorney's Office about it. The issue now, separating out what Mayor Zimmer has said on our air and to others about retaliation and a kind of quid pro quo on Sandy funding, one of the issues that's happened now is the governor's office pushing back and saying Hoboken's got tons of help. You got $70 million in federal money. We deconstructed that number yesterday, which is wildly misleading because a lot of that is federal flood insurance and things the governor can't control. But what's being debated now is, has Hoboken gotten the help it needs from the state? And what's your response to that? I would say it hasn't, and that's why it's so important and that's why I wanted to continue to talk to the press about this, because in the city of Hoboken, just this evening, we're having a presentation by a Dutch firm that is, the Rebuild by Design money is being made available on the federal level by HUD, and we are in competition with about 10 other communities to receive some of that funding. It's a very generous amount of funding, and I want people to know that Hoboken has a dire need. We were hit extremely hard by Hurricane Sandy. 50,000 people, if I'm not mistaken, in Hoboken. It's north of 50,000. North of 50,000. It's 1 square mile, and basically the entirety of it was underwater during Sandy. I've heard numbers between 75 and 80%, and I live in the bottom of the bathtub, so to speak, so it was tremendously underwater for many days. You do not feel then, as distinct from the accusations that have been leveled against Christie administration, just as a matter of policy, do you feel that the state has been helpful enough in helping Hoboken? No, I don't think they have. And I was always concerned about that from the get-go, because I'm just not sure if some of our state leaders fully realize and appreciate how our urban areas were hit by this. I've spent summers at the Jersey Shore since the 70s, and I think people understand how the shore can get hit by a hurricane, and it's receiving the aid it well deserves. But I sometimes think our urban areas, it's not understood quite so much how we were hit. That's interesting.
Chris, can I just say something in terms of whether or not there was political blackmail, as is alleged? It really is irrelevant how much aid the city of Hoboken received. If the lieutenant governor made the offer and conditioned the receipt of federal Sandy funds on someone in the mayor's position acting in her official capacity to help a private interest, that's bribery. There's a federal statute that's right on point. I'm glad you raised that, because today we've got an article and some discussion about the legality of this. Let's say, assuming that it's true, assuming this was done, right? And we don't know if it does, and it's been strenuously denied, but assume for a moment it is it illegal? And I want to read you what one person had to say. Just showing the developer had strong political connections is not enough to prove a crime. If there's no proof, the project would improperly benefit Christie or his administration, said Patrick Hanley, a defense attorney in California. It's ugly, but if it's like, you want Sandy money, I want to do this, let's do a deal, that's politics. You were a criminal defense lawyer. They're talking about two different statutes. There is a statute that is on point, the federal statute, Title 18, that specifically says if you offer, in this case, federal funds in exchange for an official action on the part of the mayor to benefit a private interest, it's bribery 101. Well, let me also lay a little bit of the context here, right? There was a mayor before Don Zimmer in Hoboken. And before that? Right, and I think for a very short period of time. For a very short period of time, for a matter of, I believe, a few months, am I not mistaken? Yeah, absolutely. And what happened to that mayor? Well, it just goes to show how much the redevelopment issue is an important one. I met Mayor Zimmer years before either of us had sought public office, when we were part of an advocacy group of residents that was fighting against a proposed redevelopment area in our part of town. And we were concerned that the history of redevelopment in Hoboken, where it's very beneficial to develop
developers to redevelop there, that the needs of the community weren't being put first. I think you can meet the needs of our community and still make a profitable development.
The mayor who preceded Don Zimmer, of course, was indicted
Yes.
and I believe convicted, right, or pled out.
Yes, he
served time for essentially taking campaign donation in return for a promise to someone wearing a wire for the feds to expedite development. I mean, that was the crime.
It was my honor. Our very first meeting of the city council after I took office, and Mayor Zimmer at the time had narrowly lost to Peter Camerano. We made her the president of the city council, and I was able to sponsor a resolution which moved the zoning board appointment power from the mayor's office to the city council. And
because I just want people to understand this. That land in Hoboken is massively valuable. Massively valuable. It is incredibly densely packed. It is, basically you could almost, if you were Peyton Manning, almost chuck a football over to Manhattan, right? You're across.
Eli Manning is our resident.
Right, fair enough. You are right on the edge of Manhattan. It's some of the most valuable land, in the metro area.
Absolutely.
And so that land and how it's controlled and who unlocks the unbelievable wealth that it holds within it, that's the subject of a lot of power and has been the subject of real corruption in the past in Hoboken.
And the fact is, the lieutenant governor has been very fierce in denying this. And she said, I thought it was very interesting, the wording that she chose. She said, it's not only false, but it's illogical. But logic doesn't enter into it. If she did what she says she did as an emissary to the governor, then it is illegal.
You had a comment the other night after Don Zimmer came forward. You tweeted out something that I thought was interesting, if we could put it up on the screen there. You basically said, good for Don Zimmer to come forward. The question is, why did she wait until after she smelled blood in the water? I read that, I said, whoa.
Well, look, I'm human, and I would love for this to come out when it first, transpired. But I understand the kind of pressure people are under when you have these threats of intimidation. I mean, the governor has this pattern of bullying, and now this comes out. It's influence peddling. It's a shakedown. At least it's alleged, and I imagine it must be very hard when you're the only one out there as the whistleblower.
You were spending a lot of time in the campaign saying, that Democrats are sort of rolling over for Chris Christie, they're under his thumb. Do these allegations give you some more context for what was happening?
More context, that's an interesting phrase. Interesting choice. Where I knew that things were happening. I knew that there was intimidation because, I would call people up and try and raise money, and they were very direct with me. They say, look, I don't want to be on that report. I can't give you more than $300. But, honestly, this even surprised me, what happened with respect to Mayor Zimmer.
I want to reiterate that the governor's office, the lieutenant governor, and others have strongly denied these allegations. I just want to make sure we're very clear on that, right? This is yet to be established. Let me ask you what's next for Hoboken. And is there any worry that you guys are the crosshairs now if you weren't before? Well,
it's interesting you bring that up, because we do have a presentation tonight by a potential a planner from the Netherlands that they're putting forth a very interesting plan that could potentially get us a large amount of HUD money. And my concern as a representative is that that money, if we are awarded with it, that it's going to come directly to us and not have to get filtered through the state. I think that's appropriate, and I would think that's appropriate regardless of.
So you're calling for that money to be directly given to you and not filtered through the state in light of what is the cloud of suspicion that currently hangs over it?
Well, one I would call, just for the fact that we were hit so hard by Sandy, I believe global warming is a real thing that is going to affect our community. We need to prepare for it, and I think we need that funding because we have a good plan in place that needs to be more fleshed out, and we're going to get that plan funded.
That's Hoboken City Councilman David Mello, who has been on the record with corroborating a contemporaneous account of Don Zimmer relaying her conversation with Lieutenant Governor Mello, also former New Jersey State Senator Barbara Buono. Thank you both. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.